Exxon spokesperson Don Cornett. The woman you heard question him was Cordova resident Ricky Ott. She's joining us here in our Firehouse studio, a community activist, a marine toxicologist, a former commercial salmon fisherman, and author of 2 books on the spill. Her latest is Not One Drop, Betrayal and Courage in the Wake of the Exxon Valdez Spill. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you, Amy.
So where are you 20 years after the spill? Where were you March 24th, 1989?
I was in bed, and I heard this knocking on my door at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, what in the world? Because I lived half a mile up, had a hike, people actually had a hike in, and I went rushing down, and there was the acting director of the Fishermen's Union, and he just said, we've had the big one. And I knew exactly what he meant.
What were you doing then? What was your job?
I was working, on the board of the Fishermen's Union, and I was assigned the oil issues.
And you were in Cordova?
I was in Cordova.
So what did you see when you went outside?
I flew. I had to fly over it, about 70 miles away. And we flew in this plane, and it was a surreal scene. It was just drop-dead gorgeous, March sunrise, pink mountains glistening with the sunrise. And all of a sudden we come on this scene where there's this red deck of this oil tanker that's 3 football fields long, flat, calm water, dark blue, and there's this inky black stain that's just stretching with the tide.
What did you do?
We did a marine mammal survey right off the bat. We knew it wouldn't be calm weather very long. We went to Valdez to refuel, and that's when it hit me. What am I going to do about this? And I remember this question popped in my mind. I know enough to make a difference. Do I care enough? And I decided that, yes, I did care. This was my home. I'd lived there for 4 years already. I'd totally fallen in love with the area, the people, the lifestyle. And I decided to step up and make a difference.
Did Exxon send people right away to clean up?
There were people pouring into Valdez. It was not only Exxon, it was the Coast Guard, the state of Alaska, media from around the country, scientists, the federal government, National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration folks. And I mean, it was clear that, this was a huge spill, and how were we going to get our voice out and what mattered to us, which were the fish coming back.
You're a marine toxicologist. Explain the extent of the devastation.
Marine toxicology is the study of pollution, marine pollution, and the fishermen went, okay, here come all these scientists and experts, and we have Ricky, and I'm like, oh man. We were worried that the killing would not stop in 1989. The scientists, it was a huge devastation. I couldn't even go out on the beaches initially. I couldn't take the emotional hit. People came back, the fishermen, and they said they had sat down on what they presumed was rock to cry, and it turned out to be like an oiled sea otter or something that was dying. There were just bodies everywhere. The oil in some of the bays was over 3 feet thick. You couldn't even hear the sound of the waves crashing on the shoreline. Everything was muted. Some of the oil, with the storm that came through, there was a huge storm that came through, and it just smeared oil up to 40 feet high on some of our coastline. It was in the trees. It just took animals out, and it was very, very quiet.
How many animals died?
There was up to 500,000 seabirds, up to 5,000 sea otters, 300 or so harbor seals, billions of young salmon and herring fish eggs and young juvenile fish. And this was a problem because it created a delayed impact. When you take out eggs, you don't really see the impact until those eggs should have become adults and joined the adult population. That's what we saw with herring. The crash didn't happen until 1993, 4 years later, when the young of the year in '89 failed to materialize.
And so what happened to the herring industry? How extensive was it?
Well, the salmon and the herring both collapsed because they were spawned on these beaches, these oiled beaches. Salmon, and this was 92, 93, this is delayed harm. Salmon gradually came back, but herring never did. And this is a huge problem, not only for the ecosystem, but also for the economy. Herring are the main forage fish of the ecosystem of Prince William Sound. So whales, sea lions, seabirds, everything depends on herring. Without herring, realistically, we can't expect the Sound to recover. And what the scientists are saying now is they have no idea how long it will take for herring to recover. Meanwhile, the herring fisheries are closed indefinitely. So the permits that we pay a limited price for a limited entry permit. It's kind of like buying a home. It's a big price, and you take out a loan, and then you pay it back every year based on your fishing income. And it's zero income for herring fishermen. So they have incurred a huge debt on this permit, and it's really the debt that's eating us alive now. $300,000, and these permits are worth now about $15,000. I mean,
the mayor committed suicide?
One of our mayors, right after the spill, he did, and it was 1993 when the fish runs were collapsing, and I call that year as bad as it gets.
A well-known politician once said, "We should all bear a thought for the mistakes of the past and work tirelessly to ensure they are not repeated." And do we know who that was? It was our very own Mayor, Jim Pollock. Yesterday, on Australia Day, January 26, 2010. Yesterday, Jim, you spoke to the whole of Whyalla, encouraging us to work tirelessly to ensure the mistakes of the past are not repeated. That was 24 hours ago, and we're now calling on you and the council to do no less. This is the view that we get going out to Point Lowly. This is the oil spill. We were just so lucky last time. We do not want this to be our future. As elected members of this council, it is your responsibility to represent the residents of Whyalla. It is your job to protect the environment and the community from potential hazards. Councillor Joanne Waters has shown foresight and courage in putting the following motion. I don't need to read the motion. You all have it in front of you. We urge all the councillors to support the motion. The Upper Spencer Gulf is too important to us to put at risk by placing more petrochemical industry on the Point Lowly Peninsula. Thank you very much.